Welcome. In this video I'm going to be changing out the rear wiper motor on this 2006 Honda Odyssey. I'll be putting in an A premium wiper motor. So this is the EXL model, but this should pertain to other models of the Odyssey. So I'm not an expert on this, I'm just sharing my experience. The first thing I need to do is remove some of the trim on the interior liftgate. So the first thing I need to do is remove this trim. So there should be 4 clips here, and then it will be clipped to the side. I'll be using a trim removal tool. So these are the clips it has. Here you can see how it's attached on the end. So if you peel this back a little bit on the top and bottom, this should break loose, and there's a little clip here. This just kind of pulls apart. Now it's not uncommon for these clips to break. You can get replacements. This stuff can also break too, so just be prepared. And it's actually kind of a cold day today. It's probably best to do this on a warmer day, but this is one I have available. Next I'm going to remove these side pieces. So here's this piece, and I was using one of these plier type trim removal tools. I wasn't necessarily getting it under the clip. I was trying to get as close as possible. On this side the clip stayed in, so I'll pull those out now. Next I'm going to remove the handle. So the outer part of the handle will just unclip. Then we have 2 number 2 Phillips screws. So then there will be 13 clips holding this on. You'll want to pull from the window side down. There are 2 down here on either side of the latch opening. So now we have all the trim off. Now this would be a good time to replace light bulbs and such if you need to. So now I need to close the gate. I need to remove the wiper arm. Now there's usually a plastic cover here, it's missing. This is a 10mm nut. I did put some penetrating oil on here earlier just in case it's partially seized. That nut came off fairly easily. The wiper is not coming off. Okay, so I got that nut off, and this is supposed to just come off. The factory service manual says this just pulls right off. Doesn't seem to be coming off though. I'm going to try this trim tool and see if it'll pull it off. I don't want to crack the windshield. I'll put a little penetrant on there and let it sit for a few minutes, and then I'll try and work it off. Okay, so I can't get this arm off. I may need to cut it off and replace it. I'm going to try and drill the shaft out on the old motor a little bit. So I took a block of wood on my drill press and I drilled a 1/4 inch hole in it, and I set it over this and held it on there flush. And then I took that 1/4 inch drill bit and put it in there, and that marked the center fairly accurately. Now I'll use progressive size bits to see if I can drill through that. Now I'm not going to film all this because it could take a while, but I'll let you know how it turned out. I could also potentially cut on either side of this, or maybe slice right down the middle to get this off. I don't want to cut in the back because there's this plastic piece and it would cut it, like if I took a hacksaw and tried to cut that off. Also don't want to pry against it because I don't want to break the rear window, obviously. Now while I'm drilling, I just taped a bag onto the door to catch the filings. Okay, so I was able to drill this out enough to get it off. Now if we look in here, my drill did get just off center, so I ended up going up to 3/16. Now I can probably bolt this on temporarily, but I'm going to get a replacement and put it on there. But my main thing is I didn't want to ruin the gaskets and such. So now I'll try and get this off. So I'm just kind of twisting and pulling at the same time. So that's not what I wanted to see. I need to remove this nut here. It looks pretty corroded. So I'm actually going to clean this up with a wire brush, put some penetrating oil on it, and we'll see if that loosens up. Okay, so I have a 24mm socket. I think this might be 23. We'll see if this works. 22 is too small. Yeah, I think I need to get a 23mm socket for that. Okay, so I let this soak for an hour with penetrating oil. I hunted down a 23mm socket, and I'm going to try and use an impact to get this off. Okay, there it is, and the threads look good on it. You can see there, so hopefully I can put that on the new motor. So now I'll continue to take this apart. There's a large washer there. I'll go clean that off. Now let's get back to the inside. So next we need to remove the connector. I'm going to use this little pick tool. Let me show a close-up of that. So I took the pick tool and stuck it in here and kind of pried up a little bit, and this slid out. Next we need to remove the 3 bolts that are holding the motor in. So those are here, here, and here. And those are 10mm. And the motor came right out. So here we have the old motor. Here's the new one. This is how it comes. It doesn't come with any of the hardware. So we'll have to take these grommets out. Don't know how easy those will be to take out. Might need to pry them. See if I can get them out with a large screwdriver. They're in there pretty good. It seemed to work well to put a Phillips screwdriver in there and just pop it out. Now there's a groove in this O-ring, and it doesn't go all the way around, so it really kind of fits in the slot. The close end will have to be on the outer portion. So I'll stick this in like so. There we go. I'll do that to the other two. Looks like I could just pop the center out, slip it in, and reinsert the center. Okay, so the grommets are all prepped. Now it comes with some tape or a little plastic thing around the threads, so I can pull that off. And now I can stick this to the grommet and install the 3 bolts. Now I did already plug the new one in earlier and tested it to make sure it worked before I tore all this apart. I'm going to put just a little thin coating of silicone grease in the O-ring there. This isn't called for in the factory service manual, but it shouldn't hurt it. I'm also going to clip this cable on here. So those bolts will get torqued down to 9.8 Newton meters or 7.2 foot-pounds. So now I can plug the connector back in. And then you'll probably want to test it out to make sure it works. So now I'm going to put this back together. So I have this washer. I'm going to coat this in the silicone grease before I put it back on to hopefully slow down any further corrosion. If I was more ambitious, I'd clean it and paint it or something, but I think this will work. Now I'm using silicone grease because this should be compatible with rubber, and I don't want it to break down the rubber gasket. Now I have the nut, I'll put it on. Now there might have been some grease that got in these threads, but I'm not trying to get grease on these threads so I can get a proper torque. So now I'm going to torque this to 6 foot-pounds. I'm actually going to be using a 3/8 inch torque wrench with a 1/2 inch adapter because I have a 1/2 inch socket. Okay, so I got that torqued, and 6 foot-pounds is not super tight, so make sure you don't over tighten this. So now I'm going to put more silicone grease on the nut, and as I said before, not in the factory service manual. It just seems like as much as it was corroded, this will help it from corroding in the future. Now I can reinstall this trim piece, and the wiper blade can go back on. So I'm going to cut here, and I'll return after I get the wiper blade, and we'll finish this job up. Okay, so it's the next day, but while I'm waiting on the wiper arm, I can put this panel back on. Now I want to check these clips here and make sure they're all pushed back into their slots, because sometimes removing these, they can get kind of pushed out, and that can make them hard to align. So I'll make sure they're all pushed back. Now they may slide out when you put them in because they'll find their natural position, but you don't want them hanging halfway out. Now there are 2 different kinds of clips. This one is chipped, but I don't think I have a replacement for that. It's chipped pretty bad actually. Let me look. No, I don't have any of those. I noticed this piece down here, this trim piece uses these same clips, So I'll probably swap this out for one of these, because this will be easier to replace later if I get some replacements. So I'm going to try and align these here and then press the rest back into place. You want to kind of look where the clips are so you can press in on those areas. Now I'll put the screws in at the latch. So I got those screws in, now I'll clip the handle on. Next I'm going to reinstall the side pieces. Again, I want to make sure the clips are in. Finally, I'll put the middle piece back in. So the tailgate's together, now I'll cut to putting the wiper arm back on. Okay, so the wiper blade has arrived. I'll take the 10mm nut off of there. And this is the blade I got. It's the Dorman 42864. So to take the old blade off, I'll just tilt it up. I'll put the middle part in the slot here, like so. And I'll tilt it back down. So this has a cover on it. I'll peel that off. So I'll peel off on both sides until it pops off. So you can see the little tabs here. So I've already gone in and turned the rear wiper to on, let it run a cycle, and then turned it off. So it should be in the parked or home position. So now I can put the wiper blade on. So I'm going to want to tilt this up to put it on because it has a spring that presses it towards the windshield. And now I'll put the 10mm nut on. So on this model, the wiper should go to the right. I think in later models it actually goes to the left. If you're confused on yours, you can put a piece of tape on here and then watch it run a cycle and see where it stops. So I'm going to tighten this nut down, and that's going to get torqued to 9.8 Newton meters or 7.2 foot-pounds. So that's mostly tightened down. Before I tighten it down all the way, I'm going to run a cycle. Hopefully I have it tight enough so it'll actually move the blade, and I want to see how it operates. Okay, so when I ran the cycle, it tilted up a little bit. I'm going to leave that as because it's pretty even. With it tilted up, hopefully this can drain snow and ice off it a little quicker. We'll see. So I'll torque this down now. Okay, so that's tight. Now I can clip on this cover. And we're all finished. So that's replacing the wiper motor and wiper arm on a 2006 Honda Odyssey. So I hadn't planned on replacing the arm, but I couldn't get it off. So if your motor's bad, you might want to try to take the arm off first and see if it comes off easily, or maybe just buy a replacement to have on hand. This wasn't too difficult of a job, so I ended up drilling that out to get this off, and if I had to do it over again, I would do the same thing. That shaft drilled pretty easily, but I think most DIY mechanics can handle a job like this. So that's all I'm going to cover in this video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.